Abandoned my family for another man. My story. You know what's funny about having everything you thought you wanted? It starts feeling like a prison. I'm Megan. I'm 40 now. And I need to tell you about the biggest mistake of my life. Though, look, I'm not sure I'd call it a mistake anymore. See? Everyone thinks they know my story, but they don't know what it was really like being married to Cody for 15 years. Don't get me wrong. He was a good provider, made decent money in his engineering job, bought us a beautiful 4-bedroom house in this perfect suburban neighborhood. We had 3 boys together, Khalil, Zaid, and Omar. And from the outside, we looked like the American dream. But here's what nobody tells you about the American dream. It can feel suffocating as hell. Cody was one of those traditional men. You know, he wanted me covered up even in our own house. Said the kids might see me or someone might drop by. I hadn't worked since our first son was born, which was fine at first. But after 10 years of changing diapers and making dinner, I started wondering if this was really all there was to life. The neighborhood was full of other housewives just like me, and we'd take these afternoon walks while our husbands worked and the kids were at school. My closest friend was Yasmin, this gorgeous woman who lived 3 houses down. She had that effortless confidence I always envied. We'd push our strollers and talk about recipes and our husbands' quirks, but sometimes the conversation would drift to other things, like what it would feel like to be single again, to make your own choices, to not have to ask permission to buy a coffee or wear what you wanted. I know it sounds terrible, but we'd fantasize about it just briefly. You understand, before snapping back to reality and talking about meal prep or whatever. Yasmin was the first one to download a dating app, just for fun. She said, just to see what was out there, to feel desired by someone who wasn't obligated to want you. I thought she was crazy at first, but then she started showing me these messages from men who thought she was beautiful, who wanted to take her on adventures, who promised her excitement. Meanwhile, Cody came home every day at 5:30, ate dinner, watched TV, and went to bed. Same routine, every single day. He never wanted to travel anywhere romantic, just family trips to theme parks where I had to chase the kids around while he complained about the crowds. When I'd suggest a weekend getaway, just the 2 of us, he'd say we didn't need that kind of thing. We had everything we needed right here, but I was dying inside. And I didn't even realize it until Yasmin started talking about this guy she'd been messaging. He was successful, drove expensive cars, knew celebrities, everything Cody wasn't. She showed me his Instagram, and I swear, this man lived like a king. Private jets, fancy restaurants, beautiful women on his arm at events. It was like looking into a completely different world, one where women were treated like queens instead of housekeepers. That's when the seed got planted in my head. What if I could have that too? What if I deserved more than this boring, predictable life where my biggest excitement was grocery shopping? Yasmin kept encouraging me, saying I was too beautiful and young to waste away in suburbia. She'd say things like, Cody doesn't even see you anymore. Does he? And she was right. He looked right through me most days. Like I was just part of the furniture. So when she dared me to make my own dating profile, just to see what would happen, I thought, why not? What's the harm in feeling wanted again? I told myself it was harmless, just an ego boost, nothing more. But deep down, I think I already knew I was looking for an escape route. I just didn't want to admit it to myself yet. The profile went live on my 36th birthday, while Cody and the kids were celebrating me with a grocery store cake and gas station flowers. As they sang happy birthday, I was thinking about all the messages already flooding my phone from men who actually seemed excited to talk to me. That night, after everyone went to bed, I scrolled through dozens of profiles, feeling more alive than I had in years, and that's when I saw Darius's message, and everything changed. This man was everything Cody wasn't. Smooth, confident, worldly. His parents were from Jordan like mine, but he was born here in America and lived this incredible life. He owned a social media marketing company, had pictures with celebrities, drove a Rolls Royce. When he messaged me, he didn't just say, hey, like all the others. He wrote paragraphs about how stunning I was, how I deserved to be worshipped, how he could show me what real luxury felt like. Between us, I was hooked from day one. We'd text all day while Cody was at work and the kids were at school. Darius would send me pictures of his yacht, his penthouse, his fancy dinners. He'd tell me about the places he wanted to take me. Miami, Dubai, Paris, places I'd only seen in movies. He made me feel like I was special, like I was worth something more than just being a housewife in suburbia. The conversations got more intense, more personal. He'd ask about my marriage, and I found myself complaining about things I'd never even admitted to myself. How Cody never complimented me anymore. how he treated me more like a roommate than a wife, how I felt invisible in my own life. Darius would listen and validate every feeling, telling me I deserved so much better. He said he wanted to make me his wife, to show me off to the world. Can you imagine, after 15 years of being told to cover up, here was a man who wanted to display me like a trophy? The turning point came when I told him about my grandmother back in Jordan getting sick. It was true, she really was ill, but when Cody offered to pay for my plane ticket to visit her, I saw my opportunity. I could visit my grandmother and meet Darius. He was in Miami at the time, and he said he'd book me a connecting flight. Just a few days, I told myself, just to see what it felt like to be free. Those 4 days in Miami changed everything. The moment I stepped off that plane and saw Darius waiting for me with flowers, I felt like I was in a movie. He whisked me away to this incredible hotel with a balcony overlooking the ocean. We had dinner on his yacht, and for the first time in years, I felt beautiful. I felt alive. I took off my hijab and let my hair blow in the wind. I wore a bikini and didn't care who saw me. I felt like myself again. Or maybe like who I was always meant to be. And yes, I slept with him. The first night. Actually, I betrayed 15 years of marriage in a hotel room overlooking the Miami skyline. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it felt incredible. Not just the physical part, but the emotional part. He made me feel desired in a way Cody never had. He told me I was gorgeous, that I was his queen, that he was going to take care of me forever. He bought me jewelry, this beautiful diamond bracelet, but said I couldn't take it home yet. He'd keep it safe until I was ready to leave Cody and become his wife. The way he said it, so confident and sure, made it seem inevitable. Like this wasn't just a fantasy, but an actual future we were planning. When I flew back home, I was a completely different person. I'd spent one day with my grandmother, enough to take some pictures and have a story, but my mind was still in Miami with Darius. Cody picked me up from the airport with the biggest smile, hugging me tight, telling me how much he'd missed me. The kids were so excited to see their mom, showing me all the drawings they'd made while I was gone. I should have felt guilty, but I didn't. I felt annoyed. Annoyed that I had to come back to this boring life. Annoyed that Cody was asking me all these questions about my family, when all I wanted to do was text Darius. When Cody wanted to be intimate that night, I couldn't do it. I made excuses. I was tired from the flight. Jet lag. Whatever. The look of hurt and confusion on his face should have broken my heart. But instead it irritated me. Why couldn't he just leave me alone? This went on for weeks. I'd find reasons to avoid intimacy while secretly texting Darius constantly. We were planning my next visit, talking about when I'd finally leave Cody and move to Miami permanently. Darius painted this picture of our life together, traveling the world, attending exclusive events, living in luxury. Everything I'd been missing stuck in suburbia. But Cody wasn't stupid. He started asking questions, getting suspicious about why I was always on my phone, why I'd become so distant. He'd try to initiate conversations about our relationship, asking if something was wrong. If I was happy, I'd brush him off or change the subject, which only made him more persistent. The truth is, I was getting careless. I wanted him to find out. I wanted this whole charade to end so I could start my real life with Darius. The confrontation finally came about a month after I got back from Miami. Cody had been watching me, I think, noticing how I'd smile at my phone and quickly hide it when he walked in the room. One night, after the kids were asleep, he sat me down and asked directly if I was having an affair. His voice was shaking, and I could see he was terrified of the answer. I could have denied it. I could have gaslit him, made him think he was paranoid. But I was tired of pretending. I was tired of this life, this marriage, this whole suburban prison, so I told him the truth. I told him I was in love with someone else, someone who actually appreciated me and wanted to give me the life I deserved. I even showed him some of the messages on my secret phone, the romantic ones, the ones where Darius called me his queen and promised me the world. What happened next still gives me chills, but not in a good way. Cody, this man who had never raised his voice to me in 15 years, completely lost it. He grabbed my phone and threw it against the wall, shattering it into pieces. Then he turned to me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Pure rage. He slapped me across the face so hard I fell to the ground. I was in shock. This wasn't the Cody I knew. This wasn't the gentle, predictable man I'd married. He immediately broke down, falling to his knees, crying and begging for forgiveness. He kept saying he didn't know what came over him, that he'd never hurt me, that he was sorry. But the damage was done in that moment. He reminded me of my first husband, the one who used to hit me, the one I'd escaped from all those years ago. I grabbed my keys and left that night. I called Darius from a gas station, crying and shaking, telling him what happened. Within hours, he'd booked me a flight to Miami. He said he'd been waiting for this moment, that now we could finally be together without any secrets or lies. I was scared but excited. This was it. My chance at the life I'd been dreaming about. Those first few months in Miami were like a dream. Darius treated me like a princess. We lived in his gorgeous penthouse, went to exclusive parties, traveled to exotic locations. I posted pictures on social media of my new life. Designer clothes, expensive restaurants, beach vacations. I wanted everyone back home to see what I was missing, what I'd finally found. But living with someone is different than a few romantic days here and there. Darius traveled constantly for work, leaving me alone in the penthouse for weeks at a time. When he was home, he had a different woman calling or texting almost every day. He claimed they were business contacts, but I wasn't naive. I started noticing things. Lipstick on his collar, perfume that wasn't mine, phone calls he'd taken private. About a year into our relationship, I started having some health issues, burning, itching, discomfort during intimacy. I was embarrassed to bring it up, but when it got worse, I finally went to a doctor. The diagnosis was devastating, herpes. When I confronted Darius, he denied everything, said he'd been tested, that it couldn't have come from him, that maybe I'd gotten it from Cody years ago and it was just now showing symptoms. I wanted to believe him, but deep down I knew the truth. He'd given me an STD, probably from one of his other women. But what was I going to do? Leave. Go back to Cody after everything I'd done. I was trapped, and Darius knew it. His treatment of me started to change. He became more distant, more critical. He'd make comments about my appearance, compare me to other women, make me feel like I was lucky he was keeping me around. Meanwhile, back home, Cody was trying to reach me. He'd call and text, begging me to come home, saying he forgave me and wanted to work things out. At first, I ignored him completely. But as things with Darius got worse, I started to miss my old life. I missed my kids desperately. I missed having a stable home, someone who actually cared about me as a person, rather than just a trophy. 2 years into my Miami adventure, I finally answered one of Cody's calls. He sounded broken, defeated. He said the kids asked about me every day, that he didn't know how to explain where mommy had gone. He begged me to come home, said we could go to counseling, that he'd do whatever it took to fix our marriage. For a moment, I actually considered it. I told Darius about the call, expecting him to fight for me, to remind me of all the reasons I'd left in the first place. Instead, he shrugged and said, maybe it was for the best. He said he'd been thinking about our relationship and wasn't sure it was working out anyway. He was getting tired of the drama, tired of dealing with my baggage from my previous life. That's when I knew I'd made a terrible mistake. This man I'd given up everything for didn't actually love me. I was just another woman in his rotation, and now that the novelty had worn off, he was ready to move on to the next one. But I couldn't go back to Cody either. Too much had happened. Too much damage had been done. I started making plans to return home anyway. Maybe I could rebuild my relationship with my kids. Even if my marriage was over, maybe I could start fresh, find my own place, create a new life that didn't depend on any man. I gave Cody a date and time when Darius would be out of town, asking him to come get me. I waited at the penthouse all day, my bags packed, ready to go home. But Cody never showed up. Instead, there was a knock at the door from building security. They handed me an envelope that had been dropped off for me. Inside were divorce papers. I fell apart, completely broke down on the marble floor of Darius's penthouse, sobbing uncontrollably. Cody was done with me. He'd given up, moved on, decided I wasn't worth fighting for anymore. I signed those papers through my tears, knowing I was signing away the only real family I'd ever had. When Darius came back from his trip and found out about the divorce, he wasn't supportive or comforting. He was annoyed. He said he didn't want to deal with a messy divorce situation, and that maybe I should find somewhere else to stay while I figured things out. He gave me some money and the address of a friend's apartment where I could crash temporarily. That temporary stay turned into months. I was stuck in this tiny studio apartment, living off Darius's charity. While my divorce was finalized, the proceedings were brutal. Cody got full custody of the kids, the house, everything. I got visitation rights. But when I tried to see Khalil, Zaid, and Omar, they wanted nothing to do with me. My oldest son told me I looked different, that I wasn't their real mom anymore. The final blow came at the last custody hearing. Cody walked in with a woman I didn't recognize. Younger, prettier, more put together than I'd ever been. My boys were holding her hands, calling her by name, treating her like she belonged in our family. She was everything I used to be before I threw it all away for a fantasy. Watching my children accept another woman as their mother was the most painful moment of my life. But instead of fighting for them, instead of begging for another chance, I decided to go back to Miami, back to Darius and the life I'd chosen. At least there I could pretend I was happy, pretend I'd made the right choice. But when I texted Darius to tell him I was ready to come home, his response was cold and final. He said he'd moved on, that our relationship had run its course, and that I needed to stop living in the past. He told me not to contact him again and blocked my number. Just like that, I lost everything. My husband, my children, my home, and the man I'd given it all up for. I was 39 years old, alone in a strange city, with nothing but a suitcase and a few $1,000s to my name. I found a cheap motel and started looking for work. The only job I could get was waiting tables at a 24-hour diner. Me, a woman who used to live in a 4-bedroom house, who used to have a husband who provided for everything, now serving coffee to truckers at 3 a.m. just to pay for a motel room. The other waitresses were mostly young girls saving up for college or older women who'd been doing this their whole lives. They'd ask about my story, why someone like me was working the night shift at a dive diner. I'd make up lies about being recently divorced, about starting over, about this being temporary. But the truth was, this was my life now. This was what I'd traded my family for. Months passed. I saved enough money to rent a small apartment, bought a used car that broke down constantly, learned to change my own oil and fix my own problems. All the things Cody used to take care of without me even asking. I'd never realized how much he did for our family until I had to do everything myself. The loneliness was crushing. I'd go days without having a real conversation with anyone except to take food orders or ask for extra ketchup. I'd scroll through social media and see pictures of my old life, Cody and the kids at baseball games, family dinners, birthday parties. That woman, Layla, was in all the pictures now. She fit into my family like she'd always belonged there. One evening, about 8 months after my divorce was finalized, I was waiting for the bus after my shift when I saw them, Cody and Omar at a red light, just a few cars away. I started waving frantically, calling out to them. Omar saw me first. His mouth dropped open in shock. But instead of excitement or joy, I saw something else in his expression. Embarrassment. Shame. Like he was ashamed of me. Cody grabbed Omar's chin and turned his face away, telling him not to look. When the light changed, he sped away like I was some kind of threat, some dangerous person they needed to escape from. My own son, my baby, was being protected from me. That night, I seriously considered ending it all. I sat in my tiny apartment with a bottle of pills, thinking about how much easier it would be to just disappear. Nobody would miss me. My kids had a new mom. Cody had moved on. Darius had forgotten I existed. What was the point of continuing this pathetic existence? But I didn't do it. Maybe I was too much of a coward. Or maybe some small part of me still hoped things could get better. Instead, I kept working, kept surviving, kept pretending that this was all temporary, that someday I'd figure out how to fix everything. Now it's been 2 years since I left my family. I'm 40 years old, working double shifts at a diner, getting hit on by drunk men who tell me I'm too pretty to be serving them coffee. Every time someone asks where my husband is, I want to scream. Every time I see a family with young boys, I want to cry. I know what people think of me. I know they think I'm selfish, that I destroyed my family for nothing, that I got what I deserved. And maybe they're right. Maybe I did get exactly what I deserved. But here's what nobody understands. I was suffocating in that life. I was disappearing, becoming invisible, losing myself completely. Yes, I cheated. Yes, I abandoned my children. Yes, I threw away a good man who loved me and provided for me. But Cody pushed me to that point with his controlling behavior, his constant need to keep me covered up and hidden away. He never wanted to travel or have adventures or do anything exciting. He was content with his boring routine, and he expected me to be content with it too. Darius was a mistake. I can admit that now. He was a player who used me and threw me away when he got bored. But at least with him, I felt alive. At least I felt like a woman instead of just a mother and wife. At least someone wanted to show me off instead of hide me away. I miss my boys every day. I miss having someone to take care of me, to fix things when they break, and to handle all the responsibilities I never had to think about before. But I can't go back. Too much has happened. Too much damage has been done. Cody has moved on with someone better, someone who appreciates the life he can provide. My children have accepted her as their mother, so here I am, starting over at 40, learning to be independent for the first time in my life. Some days I regret everything. Some days I wonder what would have happened if I'd just stayed, if I'd found a way to be happy with what I had. But most days, I try not to think about it at all. I try to focus on surviving, on getting through each shift, on paying my bills and keeping my head above water. People say I should be grateful for the lessons I've learned, that this experience has made me stronger. But the truth is, I just feel tired. Tired of being alone. Tired of struggling. Tired of pretending that this is the life I wanted. I made my choice, and now I have to live with it. Even if living with it feels more like dying a little bit every day. Maybe someday my boys will want to see me again. Maybe someday they'll understand that their mother was just a woman who made some terrible mistakes while trying to find herself. But I'm not holding my breath. Some mistakes can't be undone. Some bridges can't be rebuilt, and this is my life now. And I have nobody to blame but myself, though between you and me. I still think Cody could have tried harder to keep me. If he'd been more exciting, more adventurous, more appreciative of what he had, maybe none of this would have happened. But that's water under the bridge now. We're both living the lives we chose. And apparently, his choice worked out a lot better than mine.